Welcome to the Create Your Happy podcast, where conscious female creators come together with a shared vision to inspire and empower women as they learn how to fully embrace their humanness, find their unique voice, and collaborate on how together we can change the world. I'm your host, Christy Holt, happiness coach and conscious funpreneur on a mission to change the world one beautiful soul at a time. All right, gorgeous, it's time to get curious and become inspired. It's time to create your happy. Welcome to this week's episode of the Create Your Happy podcast. I am thrilled to have Soulara Sevier with me today. I am so excited to dive into this conversation. But first, a little bit about Soulara. She is a Reiki master teacher and oracle. And man, this girl has got some stories to tell today. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Soulara. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself and just give us a little bit of that story to kick us off.
Thank you so much, Christy, for having me on this wonderful podcast. Anything that celebrates being happy and well, I'm all here for. So thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest. Thank you. Yep. And so you mentioned my story. And I really want to get into that because it really gets into one of the hallmarks of my business, which is Soul Reiki. We're getting into the soul. We're getting into being grounded and connected. And so this is really what happened to me. So I grew up in the Midwest, one of 6 children. So I'm right in the middle. So, you're kind of, sandwiched between, older siblings, younger siblings. And I like to believe that I was that person that kind of held things together. And, I had a little bit of fun along the way, but I more or less knew who I was, grounded. My mom really taught us things like meditation and, just a lot of esoteric things. And so I decided at some point to be a physician. I said, I want to help my family. I want to help others. So I said, okay, let's go ahead, go to medical school. I had my pediatrician who was kind of like that role model for me. And I just thought, okay, well, she looks like she's doing well. I'll do that. And so I began that journey studying really hard and just really, really focused on being a physician, got up into college, got on campus and found out about residency. I'm sorry, what? No, I'm going to have to be expected to get up. I'm going to be on call. I was just like, no. I knew at that stage in my life that was more than what was something that I wanted to do. It was something that I felt called to do, I should say. And so I said, no, I'm the type of person, if I leave an environment, I want to be gone from that environment. I don't want to be tethered to that. And so I kind of, departed from all of those years of studying and focused and realizing that I was enough and that was my purpose to finally being lost, admittedly lost and just, realizing, okay, I know I don't want to do this, but then I had to go through this process of, well, what do I want to do?
Ooh, yeah, so that's a good one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so, it was just like a shock, of course, to my mom who was like, oh no, you went to the school in order to have this outcome. And I was just like, but no, it doesn't resonate anymore. It doesn't fit. It's too much, for me. And at that time, I wasn't aware of my empathic abilities, such as just kind of absorbing energy and things of that nature. But I just knew that I needed to kind of have a stop point. And so I just began this journey. I had to end up going back home after college. Ended up with just psychology and chemistry as my degree. And I entered this realm of work, right? And that's when I found out, no, you can't really do what you want to do with a bachelor's degree, right? So as I said, I just really began this journey of self-discovery, which actually took me into nursing. Something that I wasn't aware of at first, but I was ended up at a position where nurses were saying, oh, you were, studying to be a physician, you should be able to go ahead and, apply to the nursing program and do pretty well. So long story short, I began that journey. I spent 16 and a half years as a registered nurse, and I still was missing something. I still was feeling as though I hadn't quite scratched the surface of who I was and what I came to give. I was still battling with, being enough, as you can imagine, a career where your just energy is going out and going out, I still wasn't being filled back up. And so I had found out about Reiki through, we get into the oracle part of things, I'm sure later on, through actually hearing the word Reiki in my mind. My mom actually mentioned it as we were growing up. I knew she wasn't a practitioner, but I did know that she was aware of it. And so at that time, I was also experiencing a lot of energy depletion. I was starting to get sick, literally starting to get to a point where my body was so overworked and so stressed that I needed an outlet. And so when I heard the word Reiki, I did research on it, and it just resonated with me. I felt like, this is something that is calling me. And so I had the opportunity to meet a Reiki master teacher, and then here we are today. I know I've kind of fast forwarded the story a little bit, but that's the gist of it. And through Reiki, I really found out just my calling and my purpose. And through that, I further expanded into being enough. I said, what was the thing that just kind of kept me from getting grounded and reconnected to myself? And it was enough. Like everything centers around not feeling like I was enough. And so I'm here today to talk about this platform and how that relates to Reiki.
Amazing. And, I really think that the root of most of our suffering literally comes down to this feeling of not being good enough. And in whatever way, it can take, a multitude of different forms and show up in different ways. But ultimately, if you break it down, it so often comes down to, I don't feel I'm enough.
Exactly.
Or good
exactly.
at something, or worthy enough. It's all about this. When is it ever going to be enough?
Enough. Right.
And then at the same time, I found myself in the past really having that. And then this paradoxical, I'm too much at the same time. So it's the real jumble in my head of I'm both not enough and I'm also too much. And I don't know how to be the right amount in the middle.
Right.
I really relate to your story too, because I became an accountant and was very depleting for me too, but I was unaware. I was sick for years. Like I was constantly with some sort of, oh my gosh, I can't even count the chest infections and I had strep throat. Like I had like so many kinds of sickness from that time when I was working in an office around people all the time and working long days. And it wasn't fulfilling to me. There were parts of it, there were bursts that I was like, ooh, this part feels good. For me, it was actually the mentorship sort of role and the training and teaching kind of role. And that kind of probably makes sense for people listening to me and who are getting to know me, that makes sense that I would enjoy those components. But there was a lot that was very draining all the time. So I really relate to your story. And it's tough when your parents have these expectations and you've started on this path. Like it takes a lot of courage to say, well, hold up. You know what? It's not right for me.
Yeah.
And especially if you don't know what what is yet.
Right. Just getting off the train. And that's what I had to do. I literally had to just step off the train and I had to say, you know what, this is going somewhere where I can see it's not going to work well with me. And I want to go back to something that you said that was so important. And that was about trying to find the middle ground between not being enough and being too much. And I have to tell you, this being too much has been also a thing for me. I was always that person that was extra. And it wasn't something that I was really aware of as a terminology, but I started noticing that like I would, be in certain groups and, amongst coworkers, working as a nurse, and I would just bring like this extra like energy, in, and it would come and manifest as, I would wear scarves, to work. Imagine a nurse who has on like their scrubs and then I have on a scarf or I have on a brooch or, I have on, whatever it is. And it's just, I just wanted things to be enough, number one, but then just really, I like beauty. I like culture. I like things I like shine and just illumination. And so wherever I could fit that in, that's what I did. And I noticed that, sometimes people would kind of look a certain way, but then other times, this is the interesting thing, other times I would notice the vibration of people around me would also elevate. So then I saw other coworkers start adding their extra touches on things. I said, oh, okay. And I'll tell you something that is interesting, and I didn't really try to trademark it at the time. I really believe that I was one of the first ones to actually glitterize the stethoscope. Like literally, I had a stethoscope and I found someone who made jewelry and I just had this vision. I said, okay, can you put the rhinestones on the stethoscope? And so now, of course, it's all the rave. But like back in the day, I was the one who one by one had someone put those on my stethoscope. Like when I say enough extra, it was like trying to figure out, where do I fit here?
That's not even extra. That's just plain fabulous.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So you started to transition out of that. You stopped the train. You thought, oh my God, now what? And I know I've been there too. I thought, oh my word, I I know what I don't want, but like to figure out from that, where do I go? That was that was the struggle for me, because when you're on that train for so long, you're just going that direction. You're not listening to those nudges. You're not trusting your intuition, your inner voice. You're like, what is that? I don't know what that is. I don't hear it. I'm too focused doing the things that I am expected and supposed to do, not the things that I feel called to do.
Yes.
So how did you start to tune into that?
So this is going to be very interesting. I happened to be walking on campus one day, and this is when I turned in my paperwork to say, I am declared no longer pre-medicine. And it was kind of a big deal. And so I happened to be, walking on campus. And just so you know, I've been enough for quite a while. I should say extra for quite a while, because I'm walking on campus in a suit. Imagine a suit and a scarf. I'm just saying.
Just fabulous. I'm saying.
It's just... Well, thank you. And it always feels natural. So I was just walking. And so a gentleman walked up to me and he said, ma'am, can we take your picture? We're actually shooting a commercial in the French Quarter. I went to school in New Orleans. I went to Xavier. And they said, we want to take your picture. If our producer likes your look, you can be in this commercial. I had never, ever thought of that as a career, as an option. And it was so delightful. I was just like, oh my goodness, a commercial, And so I said, sure, take my picture. And so he took my picture, and I used, some of the things my mother taught me about, visualization. So I visualized the telephone ringing in my dorm room. I visualized as I picked it up, the person on the other end would say, our producer loved your look and we want you to be in this commercial. So every chance I got, I visualized that. I felt the feelings. And when you know it, 2 weeks later, I got a call, and the person on the other end said the exact same thing that I visualized in my mind. So of course I wasn't, surprised, because I had primed myself to have this experience. I went and did this commercial in the French Quarter, and I said to myself, you know what? This is fun. I can make a living from this. This is it. Let me do this. This is what I really want to do. And so I had to, of course, graduate from college, left there, went back to St. Louis, and imagine trying to be an actress in St. Louis. Oh my goodness, right?
I've been to St. Louis one time. I'm not sure how, I don't know a lot about it, but it doesn't seem like the vibe.
Exactly, right? So the other part of me with being, more than enough and all of that is just also being forward thinking. So I was kind of open to the fact, okay, I had kind of gotten involved with a core group of people who were into independent films. And I said, okay, well, we can do this. I have this whole, visualization, and we can just come together and do this stuff. And in the midst of that is when I took up a job as a mental health technician. And that's kind of when I got involved with nursing school. And then at that time, I was realizing, well, I don't have to really stay here. I can travel, do my nursing, and then do my acting. And so it was during that time that I realized it would either be Los Angeles or Atlanta. And so I just kind of tuned in and just asked myself, where am I supposed to be? And the resounding answer was Atlanta. And that was 2008. And I've been here ever since. And so, that kind of got me on the path to, as I said, nursing and, feeling like I was enough and all of that. But during that transition, when I got here, is when I realized that there's something deeper. That was kind of during the time of the collapse and then everything that was happening in 2008. And so I had time to go inward again and realize there's something deeper. Yes, there's joy and there's happiness created around acting, but what do I do for the part of me that affects other people or that inspires others? And so that's when I got into entrepreneurship and, finding creative ways to express my passion for fashion, and then this healing that just kept popping up. So yeah, that's just pretty much how I kind of began that journey of who am I? What do I need to do? Am I enough?
It's a wild ride. And I always find it so interesting. All of the really seemingly random different parts of our puzzles that end up coming together at the end, because they help us to discover ourselves, to discover not only the things we do want and desire, but the things that we don't want. And that's also equally useful information to kind of discover, okay, well, that is not for me, right? And so many people are so worried about if I do something, I make a mistake, and it's going to be so hard, and I don't know if I could handle that. That might just be the information that says, that's not for me. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That you don't have to make it mean a lot more than that. You can just take that to be that's interesting information. Okay, probably wasn't meant to be an accountant for my entire life. in my case, I'm confident that the universe really put things into my path because I wasn't quite getting there and doing that for myself. So certain circumstances along the way have aligned in such a way that some of the decisions that I was waffling on were made for me. And, sometimes when that happens, we're like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? I can't believe that's happening. Our ego steps in, is like, hold up, what does this mean? Damn ego, always hopping in to find out all the meaning and all the
I want it now. What's the answer now?
Right? Need to understand. And the truth is, once you sort of just go with it, because otherwise you just end up arguing with reality, and that is a huge waste of time and energy.
But
if you just start going with it, you start to realize, okay, well, you know what? Maybe this is actually something that's happened for me, that's taking me on a new path, a path that is much more suited for my gifts, my strengths, and even my weaknesses, which is usually bullshit anyways, because our perceived weaknesses are often gifts in disguise.
Yes.
So, and so keep telling me more of this. You went into acting, and I know you've starred in a couple of movies, which, how cool. We have like movie star on set today. Very fabulous. And how did that propel you into, I know you had your own sort of, I'm not even sure what the word is, if it's a method or a signature system or how you explain your enough acronym, but tell us more about how you kind of came to that realization and tell us what that means for you.
Absolutely. So getting back into the movies and just how that transpired into E.N.O.U.G.H. As you were saying, Christy, back in St. Louis, I had a chance to actually star in 2 independent films. And the second one, I actually had the opportunity to executive produce it. And I did a little bit of fashion in it. I had some apparel and created some designs. Actually ended up having a fashion show later on that year. But I'm telling you, I was just living my best life, doing whatever I wanted to do. And so, as I said, I realized that, okay, St. Louis is not it for where I want to be and where I want to go. So I was able to make the decision to move to Atlanta. I got here. I did start taking acting classes, had a fabulous time. And I jokingly tell people that I am a serious character actress. I didn't do the comedy. Like if I say something and it's funny, then that's fine. But I'm not like a comedian. And so I kind of got here where everything was kind of had the vibe of, comedian and comedy. And I was just like, no, I'm a Viola Davis, Angela Bassett, serious character actress. So no, I'm probably going to need to pursue something where I can be more in control of the vibration. Right. And so that's when I started getting more into entrepreneurship. I'll tell you something very funny. One of my first iterations of a business, I called myself the Fashion MD. So, as you can imagine, I was going to be a doctor, right? But the MD actually stood for, at this point, manifestation, so it's just like a manifesting doctor, is what I had, the MD stood for instead of medical doctor. Yeah. So that's where I really took use of my stethoscope that was all bejeweled. And I had a white coat. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, just doing things that are just way, extra, right? Yeah. And, I was giving fashion prescriptions, fashion diagnosis, everything. I was using like medical terminology, but it's related to fashion.
That's so fun.
Still, yeah, it was so much fun. And still to this day, I haven't seen anything quite like it. But as you can imagine, I'm here in Atlanta, the film industry is starting to take off, but the fashion part of it and people understanding where I was coming from, it really, really just created this energy of making me unsure of myself. Like, oh my goodness, like this sounds like a really good idea. Like, don't you want your fashion prescriptions? Like, there's a reason why you're drawn to the color blue. Like, I was getting so in depth with, chakras and things. And I wasn't even a Reiki master teacher at that time. That was not even on the map, but there was something in me that was starting to be connected to colors and what this means and all of that. So, I really, at that time, I was struggling with, okay, am I enough? Like, I'm putting this information out here. I hear the term, if you build it, they'll come. Well, I was building it and nobody was coming, right? Yeah. And so it was, as you said, it's a very challenging time. It's where you have to really get down and dirty with yourself. You have to get in the mud, you have to get in the gunk, and you have to just figure it out. There's just no other way to say it, but you have to hang on. Don't give up. don't quit. Now, you're going to have to adapt, of course. And as you know, right now, I am the Reiki Master Teacher, Soulara. So I've even had the opportunity to transition my name. And it all comes from realizing, as I was just down in the guck, down in the mud, and I was just realizing like who I am. And I had to say, step away from what other people thought of me. And, you know, am I getting enough likes on social media? Am I getting enough followers and this and that? It was just really, really a tough time. And I realized it is not about these people. It is about me. And that's still a journey that I carry forward today. You know, I have just these sayings that come from one of my mentors who says that, you know, who and what you are is really not tied to what other people think of you. You know, it's not. And when I think about how that influences my mindset now, if I get into a situation, I already know and I believe wholeheartedly that I'm enough. But if I get into a, you know, situation mentally where I'm like, oh, wow, I would expect to be here by now, or, oh, I thought I was going to be doing this. Then I always tell myself, you know, this is not defining you. This, you know, outcome does not define who you are. So I had to really just step back, remove myself from the outer appearances of success and step into myself and realize because I'm here, I'm already successful. Because the egg and sperm combination formed me, like I'm already a winner.
Miracle.
Yeah, I'm here. You know what I'm saying? So once I got that understanding and just kept doing the soul work that was needed, began my spiritual journey in 2011, you know, it just kept going and going and growing and growing. And then, as I said, I moved into Reiki and here we are today. And as you said, I had to realize this enough principle it spans everything. It has a lot to do with decisions that we make in our relationships, in our personal lives, in definitely our career choices. Everything is about, do you believe that you are enough?
Yeah. It's such an interesting shift to make. It's one that I made too. And mine kind of looked like, holy fuck, it's me. I'm the common denominator in all of the shit that I'm dealing with. Mm-hmm. And then I'm the common denominator. So that's also really empowering and realizing, well, wait a minute. I am who I think I am. It doesn't matter what anyone else is thinking what I am or what anybody else says about me, because they don't actually know me in the same way that I do. No one else has that ability. And although we are all connected and interconnected and, you know, co-creating this experience here, I'm in charge of me. That was a huge revelation for me. Now, I was also still grappling with, okay, I am me, but I am also too much over here and not enough over here. And how do I navigate all of that? And at the end of the day, I really just come to the realization that I just have to decide that I am enough. And I know that sounds really simplistic, and anybody listening out there is just like, well, it's not that easy, Christy. I know it's not easy. No one said that the things that are worthwhile are going to be easy. But the truth is you are who you believe yourself to be. And so you show up according to those beliefs and you create the experiences according to those beliefs. So if you want to make a shift, I'm going to start with those beliefs and shifting what you believe and think about yourself.
That's right. I love that. Making the shift. And that's all it takes is making a shift. And once you decide, game over for everyone else. Let everybody else catch up and figure out, oh, well, you know, why did you change your name? And you grew up being this and you da-da-da-da. Okay, you figure that out. I've made a decision on what I'm going to do. I'm doing that. I'll see you over here or I'll be seeing you. You know, and to have the courage to really stand firm in that. And your team is your team. They're going to show up when they show up. And a lot of times when we're feeling like we're the only one and when we're alone and, you know, nobody understands us, we're not in the right space. Keep walking. Yeah. You're not there yet. Keep going. Just like me, I had to find my community. I had to find, you know, the environment where I could foster, you know, my enoughness, where I could realize that, wow, my genius is very unique. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, and to be in an environment where it's accepted just because it is, you know, I don't have to explain it and all of that. No, this is who I am. This is what I do.
Yeah. It's not that you're too much. It's that those are the wrong people, right?
That's right.
It's the wrong environment. It's the wrong circumstances. And it's not you. It's just everything else around you. And if you can get that and you can hold that at the same time and know I'm not too much, even though this person might see it differently, holding those different perspectives is a real game changer as well, especially as far as increasing your tolerance, which, let's be honest, the more tolerant you are, the happier life you're going to have, because those little things, those silly things that just aren't in agreement with you, they're not going to bother you. You're just going to be like, oh, hey, how interesting, how fascinating that human sees something completely opposite to me. How interesting. Mm-hmm. But instead we think, oh, they see it that way. Am I wrong? And then we get defensive and we're worried, what if I'm wrong? I don't want to be wrong. But the interesting thing is, if you just listen to other people, you might learn something.
Right. That's right. That's right. Right. Let the information come in. You don't have to have an opinion about everything, and as a matter of fact, this gets into something that I spoke on before about triggers. If something is triggering you, you have to go into the trigger. You have to go into that, because the trigger is like a ladder to your shadow self, that side of you that everyone doesn't see, that side of you that contains all the struggles, all the things that may be looked at, from a negative, dare I say, perspective from other people. So the triggers are just a ladder. Go down the ladder. Why do I feel like this? Why does this irk me when I hear someone say X, Y, and Z? Go into that. Allow that to the space to heal, because it will heal itself once you figure out the root cause. Then you'll begin to understand another layer of yourself and realize, oh, that reminds me of such and so, which reminds me of such and so, and you'd be able to, follow those links and then allow that to finally heal. So that time when you experience the trigger that's similar, again, you're not going to have the same response to that.
And that, I think, is how we integrate our wholeness, right? Because I believe we are already whole, right? And this illusion that we're broken or we need fixing, and healing, I think, is really actually, to me, just rediscovering your wholeness. It's not about repairing something that's damaged or broken. It's just recognizing this wholeness about yourself. And you've got to look at that shadow stuff. You've got to look at square in the eye and be like, what is here for me? Because it will come back louder and louder and louder, and it will be less pleasant each time it comes back. So if you just observe that, take that information on board, see what's there, right? You don't have to give into the big emotions or have that outburst. And I'm also going to add that there is no problem with being angry. The anger itself is not the problem. The problem is your out of control action out of that space, right? Mm-hmm. When you feel triggered or upset or angry or offended or all of these things, that's okay. The problem is when you start adding the extra meanings and the judgments and the stories to it. And now you're all mixed up in a spiral of thoughts and emotions that actually very likely have nothing to do with that original root of that anger to start with, right? So then we're distracted, everything's over here, we're not focused on what's actually there for us to work with. Mm-hmm. And so if you learn how to stay centered and grounded and look at what's coming up with open and honest vulnerability, we are going to learn so many incredible things about ourselves, and it's going to change the entire way we experience life.
Right.
It has for me.
Yes, yes. And I totally agree with what you're saying. I love when you brought the point about what healing means to you and how you're right. It's not like I'm broken and I need to be fixed. It's more of, I need to reconnect with who I really am. I've been on this journey, and however, long we've been on the journey, everybody is different. If we're not quite in that space of creating our own happiness and knowing how to do that and how to keep that going, there's some healing, if you will, that needs to take place. There's some barriers, there's some blockages that we need to unpack. And so that's part of that healing journey. And we talked about the triggers, and that kind of, rounds out everything. But yes, I agree. It's more of a rediscovering just your value, rediscovering that you're enough.
Yeah. And I think that actually even ties into, those perceived weaknesses, because like I say, I think oftentimes those are actually a superpower in disguise. You've just been led to believe or accepted a belief that is a weakness. And so there is a strong potential, if you can find a way to reframe that and really dive into what that means about you as a unique individual, not you as it relates to what other people are telling you or what has been said in the past, but who you truly are, at a deep soul level, and what your purpose is here to do, to experience, to create. Then you will find that it actually is most likely a superpower that you just didn't realize or recognize.
Yes, that's such a beautiful statement. I love that. And you're right. It's a perceived weakness because you haven't tapped into it fully. Or maybe there's a trigger that takes you, down the back corridor. You don't know why there's a fear around speaking. Why is there a fear around speaking? Why do you feel like, you're not able to get this much, income, or, why do you feel that you can't attract a certain type of mate? So yeah, you're absolutely right. Dead on, Christy.
And the more you unpack it, the more you really can discover about yourself. And I'd love you to walk us through your ENOUG.H acronym, because I think some of, the information that you're going to share with us under that are really going to shed some light onto how we can really start feeling like we're enough.
Absolutely. And I'm just so honored and thankful that this information just really downloaded. It's one of my meditations, and I was like, oh my goodness, ENOUG.H is actually an acronym. Yeah. So the ENOUG.H is E. Thank you. E is exquisite. You are so exquisite. There will never, ever be another person like you, ever, 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 ever. You are notable. You have accomplishments and achievements that you're not really giving yourself credit for. Like I was saying, by the fact that you exist here, that you were birthed here, you are very notable. You made it. There's so many other, millions of opportunities for there to be some sort of combination of genetic material, but you came, you made it through. One of a kind. You're one of a kind. And we're on these social media apps, and everything is displayed in front of us, and we're feeling like, oh my goodness, he's doing this, she's doing that, they're driving this, they're living here and there. And we just don't feel like we're measuring up to that. And we just need to not buy into what we're being shown.
Yeah, that comparison.
That comparison. Yes. Oh my goodness. That can really just sabotage who you are. Yeah. As a person. And so after being one of a kind, then you're unmatched. This is all getting into edifying yourself. You're unmatched. Like, there's no need for comparison, as you just mentioned. Your journey is totally different. When you finally get it, when you're finally turned on to the fact of who you are, what you came to do, there's not going to be any other fire like yours. So you're unmatched. It's just up to you to figure it out. Make a decision that you want to find you. You want to rediscover you. Yeah. And then after you are unmatched, the G is for genius. There's a unique genius, again, that you have. If you are aware of it, have you tapped in 1000%? Is it to where people look at you and say, oh my goodness, this is too much, right? Do you have that unique genius that is just totally oozing out of your pores? If not, come and see me. We can discover that. We can talk about your different unique gifts that you have, things that you were doing when you were in your childhood years. A lot of times, very often, the younger we are, we just naturally do these things. And it's really up to the parents to really look at that and say, oh, they're showing a gift or natural leaning towards this or towards that. It's up to the parents to support that and put them in activities that can help to harness that. Sometimes that happens and sometimes it's not. Sometimes the parent has their own, journey where they don't want to let that happen. And it's up to the child to begin their own healing process and then go back into that. So after the G is the H, hero. You are a hero. You're here at this point in time when everybody's watching this. You're a hero. You made it through. You're here. You're walking. You're living. You're breathing. There's an opportunity for you to make a difference. You have your own cape. You might not be able to see it, but you're a superhero. And then it gets into the group that I have, superheroes, because we are enough. But you literally have a cape. You are a legacy. You come from a generation of somebody. Whether it's your lineage of your mom, of your dad, all those lines going back. It's up to you now. You're here. You're present on this planet. What is your legacy? What are you going to leave here? What are you going to accomplish? There's work that needs to be done. So you're a hero.
Yeah. I adore that at every step of the way. And I agree. I think we all have our own unique voice. We have our own message. And I talk about this regularly. I probably talked about it on the podcast before, but this idea of, you might be living in a mess right now. But inside that mess, if you just hang in there, there's a way to transform, transmute, to alchemize that mess into a message. Mm-hmm. That message is one that the world needs to hear. And you alone are the one who needs to deliver it, because there is nobody like you, like we just said, right? Yes, you are one of a kind. You are, a genius in your own right. And the world needs your words, your voice, your fully expressed, authentic, unapologetic as fuck self to show up, right? Because that is how we're going to change the world. And not by comparing or competing or looking to other people, but by going within, you know, really knowing yourself, right? This relationship with self. It's an ongoing journey, because listen, if you're on this path of growth, you are an ever evolving human being. And so there is always a new level or layer or perspective to unpack. And I think that's what actually makes our human experience so damned interesting, because not only do we not always have all of the answers, but it's a constant unfolding. There's always a new adventure, a new facet to explore. And I think that's what keeps us, you know, keeps life so interesting.
Exactly. That's the ebb and flow. You know, that's the hills and the valleys. And if you're just at a flat line, you're not living. You know, you're not thriving. You know, that's death when it's just a flat line. So you're supposed to have those ups and downs and those, you know, highs and lows, and being able to figure out when I'm at the low point or perceived low. In this valley, this is a time to go in and to reflect. What is it that I need to work on? What do I need to do? And then prepare to go on the upswing, and then continue that cycle called life.
Yeah, it does involve a great deal of trust in the unknown. And I know, you know, in my past experience, uncertainty was a big fear of mine, a big question mark. And until I started really shifting my perspective on it, I remained sort of paralyzed in that fear of the unknown, the uncertainty. The worry just kept holding me back until I realized that, holy shit, all of my potentialities, all the possibilities, all the opportunities for my dreams, for my purpose, for my passion to be fulfilled, they are not right here in this comfort zone. I already know. I have a very clear idea of what's right here already in this little bubble I got. And none of that is in here, right? I knew I had in my comfort zone all that shit that I didn't want, right? That was all of the accumulation of the experiences that I had. And some of it, yes, was good. But I was also in this space where I was like, well, I don't want this, right? But it's comfortable. So it was a matter of really reframing that uncertainty. And instead of looking at it with like a lens of fear of, I don't know what's going to happen there, which now I totally say, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I totally am like, let's fucking go. Let's find out what that looks like, right? So that's a bit of a shift to be like, okay, well, you know what? I don't know. I don't have the answers yet. I don't have the full trajectory. I say I'm winging it on purpose. I'm moving towards that end intention, but I don't know all of the steps. And that's actually what makes it really exciting and fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Soulara, share with us anything that you're working on right now, any offers or exciting projects that you have in the works that you would love to share with our audience, as well as the best way to get in touch with you. I know we will have your link tree in the show notes. So if there's anything else to add, please feel free to.
Thank you so much, Christy. So on April 16th, I am collaborating again with the wonderful 𝙀her. She is a registered yoga teacher, and we're combining Reiki and yoga for another event. We had one in February, and so now we're doing another one in April. And that one is definitely for spring. We're springing into wellness, revitalizing the mind, body, and soul. It's going to be a virtual event. You will be able to find out how to register for the event and secure your virtual seat, your virtual mat. And that's going to be on the link tree, as you mentioned already. And it's going to be from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Awesome.
And thank you. And I've also launched my signature program, Soul Worth It. As you already know, you're worth it. You're enough. And in my signature program, we get into the different facets of that. We get into how to manifest that greatest part of yourself. And I'm giving you tools and tips on how to, once we tap into that, how to keep that alive, how to keep that burning and growing, and to make sure that as you are getting into yourself and who you are, it is everything that you could have ever imagined and more. So it's so exciting. You can find me on Instagram, Soul Reiki, SOULREI.KI, and the same way for that spelling on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, I really do appreciate you sharing your wisdom, and I hope that you've saved us a small nugget to share just as we wrap up the show. I would love to hear your top go-to tip, trick, or hack on something our listeners can do to start living into this experience of actually feeling and being enough, because we know that they already are. It's just a matter of them getting aligned with that same belief.
Exactly. So the first, and I would say one of the most important ways to do that, is to go into yourself. A lot of us have challenges with sitting still, and we hear the word meditating, we're running the opposite direction, like, hey, I don't have 15 minutes, I don't have 30 minutes. It doesn't take that long. You go into yourself, you find a quiet space, and just sit or lie still, and you just meet whatever is present in your life. If you are struggling with any particular area, whether it be career, relationship, or even self, feeling like we talk about knowing who we are and feeling confident and comfortable with that self, you're sitting there in those feelings, and you're allowing those feelings to take you down a journey of getting to the root. We want to get to the root. So sitting still, and I will call it meditation because you're not having information going out, so to speak. You don't have to do a mantra or anything like that. This is just a sitting still. Your eyes are closed. You're allowing that space of, okay, what am I feeling at this present time? Is it teaching me? Okay. And then you're always wanting to get into the space of reaffirming that you are enough. Like, this isn't tied to me. Whatever I am experiencing, whatever, I didn't get the raise, I didn't get the job, that's not who I am. So you want to end that experience, whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's 2 minutes, 30 seconds even, let me tap in. Why am I feeling this? Why am I triggered? And you want to end that experience with, I am enough. I am not tied to any outcome. Everything is from the inside.
And everything is essentially working out for you in the end, although definitely sometimes when you're in the middle of it, not feel like it.
Right.
But, when you look back, you can see, like I can see, right? Like this story that I shared about changing direction in my career. Initially, I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? But when one door closes, another door opens. And so we don't see that because time is tricky like that. And we have this idea that time is a linear trajectory or I'm losing
you
words.
You got it. No, you said it. Yeah. Linear trajectory. You're right. You're absolutely right. And it's so, just not true.
Right. We have this idea that things happen in this order, but the truth is there's so much more information out there that we're not aware of yet. Exactly. And so when we get all of the information, that is when we can start to see, oh, okay, this was actually working out for me, even though it felt awful, even though it was a big old mess, even though I didn't think I was going to make it through.
Right.
It's like, look back, that's when you can often see, oh, that really did work out for me. That was actually the best potential outcome that I couldn't have imagined, right?
Exactly.
Even better than I could have imagined. So,
it's just welcoming without judgment all the experiences, and then always pushing forward to your highest good.
Yeah. And the way to do that is just to continue to grow this relationship with yourself, to get to know yourself. That is the foundation that you can then build upon whatever these human experiences you desire to create for yourself, whether it be starring in a movie or having a family or becoming a doctor or accountant or changing the world by sharing your message and the message of other inspiring women on a podcast, writing a book, whatever that looks like for you. There are so many unique ways to share that message. But first, we've got to figure out what that is from within.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. I know this has been a valuable conversation for me, and I hope that the listeners find this incredible value from this topic as well. I know that so many people out there are regularly dealing with this not feeling enough. And so I hope this episode left you feeling like, wait a minute, let me look at how I'm actually thinking and believing myself to be. And can I start shifting into the space of actually feeling like I am indeed already enough? So I love you guys. Now let's go do some epic shit, shall we?
If you're ready to go a little bit deeper and do the work for yourself, my book, Unstuck for Women, is going to help you to create your personalized spiral stopper using my spiral stopper method in order to shut down all that overthinking and overwhelm that have been keeping you stuck in your current patterns. I'm going to explain inside the book how your brain works and why it might not be currently helping you to accomplish your goals, and how to change that. I'm also super excited to announce the upcoming launch of my brand new course, the Get the Fuck Unstuck Adventure. In this course, you are going to learn how to accept yourself as a whole-ass human, perfectly imperfect, just as you are. You'll discover how to free yourself from unnecessary pain and suffering. You'll learn how you can look and feel better in your body right now. You'll learn to understand yourself better in order to intentionally create the experiences you desire. And of course, you're going to learn how to stop merely surviving so you can finally start thriving. This adventure contains 21 perspective shifts that are going to take you from stuck in survival mode to consciously creating as your next level self. So join us, try on a few new perspectives, play with a few new possibilities, and become more intentional with your life. Registration is open, and the course kicks off on February 6th. If you haven't had a chance yet, be sure to head on over to my website at 𝙤𝙬𝙗.ca for some sweet goodies and bonuses that are going to help you get the fuck unstuck, starting right now. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. I trust you were inspired to take back your power and create your happy. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with women in your life who could use a little extra inspiration today. If you'd like to connect with myself and/or today's guest, you can find those details in the show notes. We would love to hear from you. If you've got an inspiring story to share, you can also apply to be a guest on the show at 𝙀𝑒𝑎teyourhappy.ca. As always, get out there, have fun, be you, and create your happy.